Hello all YouTubers, I'm the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back into this weather presentation and hurricane discussion for May 14th, 2020. Before I get on with today's video, however, I would ask that you please do subscribe if you are not already. It really does help support my channel. And please also, and this applies to every single one of you, please watch the whole video. You'd be surprised how much it really does help me grow my channel. So please consider subscribing and watching the whole video. Thank you. Now let's get on with today's video. Alright, so for today's video, we're going to be talking about my 6th hurricane forecast and discussion. Now, not much has really changed with the forecast, but there has been changes in the modeling in the other forecasts. Just from my forecast and a few of the other major weather companies haven't really changed their forecast, but there are several very new updates that are critical in determining a hurricane forecast. So again, as I said earlier, please consider staying for the whole video. And here's my 6th hurricane forecast and discussion. Well, why is this season going to potentially be active? One reason is this right here. Yeah, 80% chance of development now from the National Hurricane Center. I will most likely be updating you guys on that on another video, so stay tuned for that as well. All right, so early start to the season as possible, and this has been happening every single season since 2015. So 15, 16, all the way through 2020. Now we could potentially be having at least one named storm before June 1st. So that's pretty extraordinary there. So this is my 6th hurricane outlook. Okay, it says 5th because nothing has changed. This is the 6th one. All right, and this is for May 14th. There you go. So again, 16 to 19 named storms, 8 to 10 hurricanes, 3 to 6 major hurricanes, and 3 to 6 impacts on the United States potentially. AccuWeather is a little bit less than that. 14 to 18 named storms, 7 to 9 hurricanes, and 2 to 4 major hurricanes, as well as 2 to 4 U.S. impacts. Colorado State University, 16 named storms, 8 hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes, and they do not do a U.S. forecast, really, or at least the impacts forecast. They don't really do that kind of forecast. The Weather Company, 18 named storms, 9 hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes, and a potential U.S. impact that they always talk about. Seasonal average is about 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. Just kind of cut it in half each time. 2 to 4 is what I found in the past 10 years. I found usually 2 to 4 storms impact the U.S. each year. Surprisingly, Penn State just has a named storm forecast of 15 to 24. They don't even have a hurricane or major hurricane forecast right now. North Carolina State though does. 18 to 22 named storms, 8 to 11 hurricanes, and 3 to 5 major hurricanes. And they don't really do a U.S. impacts forecast really either. And then as of last year, we had 18 named storms, 6 hurricanes, 3 major hurricanes, and about 5 U.S. impacts when you look at the tracking map. All right. So here's where we do have some change here. Some of the modeling here has changed, some quite a bit, some not as much. All right, so here's June. You can see by June, a lot of the models are below that 0 line here. All right, a lot of the models are getting close to La Nina except for JMA. Even the European model has really changed its mind. If you remember, European model used to be the really stubborn one all the way over here. Well, it's to the left now. All right, JMA is the only really positive model here, or at least the one that's above 0. They're all in neutral. In July, we get even closer to La Nina, so the Nino 3-4 region is cooling even more. All right, up to 0.3 degrees Celsius below average. All right, when you sum up all the models and average them out, by August, everybody is below the 0 line. So everybody is in what we call a negative neutral. All right, so again, in case you guys don't know, here's El Nino. This right here is positive neutral. This is negative neutral, and this is La Nina. All right, and here's kind of your separating lines to kind of separate everything. So, like I said, all these models are in that negative neutral zone right here. All right, by August at least. I mean, again, they could certainly change their minds. And look at September. All right, now remember, like I said before, negative 0.8 is their La Nina prediction. Ours is usually negative 0.5 in the United States. But if you go by our guidelines, I mean, 4 out of the 8 models, or even actually 5 out of the 8 models, are indicating a La Nina, okay, by September. And the only 3 models that don't really predict that are the CANSIPS, the European, and the JMA. Actually, the European might, but not the JMA and the CanSIPs. They're still in the neutral phase. And by October, all right, everybody is pretty much almost to a La Nina by this point. All right, Bureau of Meteorology and NASA, as well as UK and MO, are already there by Australian standards, quote unquote. All right, but everybody's getting really close to La Nina by October. And the sum of all the models, as a matter of fact, is actually negative 0.7. So this could lead to a potentially very active hurricane season. Potentially hyperactive, we're going to have to see. All right, we also have more updates on the spaghetti models here. All right, so if you look, before on the April 25th model runs, we kind of just dove flat and just stayed on the line between neutral and La Nina. Now we dive into La Nina by September, October. We actually dive a little bit lower. So spaghetti models are going a little bit lower now. All the ensembles are starting to take it down a notch. And as I'll be showing you, if you stick around for the whole video, you'll be able to see actually what the Nino 3-4 ocean temperatures and what the anomalies are to kind of see how much they're going down. All right, so the old outlook, okay, the bottom one is what I used for my last video, which is probably over a week ago. And the top one here is the new outlook here from the Bureau of Meteorology. All right, but the bottom one is the old one that I used from last video. All right, if you look at June, all right, let's start with June here. We got negative 0.2, all right, that stayed the same. July, negative 0.6, now it's negative 0.4. That's a little interesting there, not as big of a drop at least. Negative 0.8 in August, now it's negative 0.7, all right. But September, though, look at September. September and October, it went from negative 0.8 to negative 0.9, however. All right, and therefore, our La Nina chances are over 10% greater now. Take a look at September. We have a 50% chance of La Nina. I mean, La Nina and neutral are both 50% by September. As a matter of fact, there's a 60% chance of La Nina by October, whereas neutral is only 40%. But again, 0% El Nino chances, which is going to make a hurricane season potentially more active. All right. Let's move on here. Again, we'll be moving on for the Nino 3-4, but I'm kind of doing it in the order that I do it on my other hurricane outlooks, just to kind of show you what has changed and what has updated here. All right, June. SST anomaly, negative 0.1 for the Bureau of Meteorology here. August, negative 0.4. All right, in October, looks like negative 0.7. So we're really, and this is actually from the Bureau of Meteorology themselves. I think the last one I showed you before this was probably more like models. But this is actually from the Bureau of Meteorology themselves. And you can just see how far to the left the arrow gets as we head into August and October here. So definitely below zero, that zero line, getting really close to that La Nina. And if it does get there, that could mean a potentially active hurricane season. And like I said, there doesn't need to be a La Nina to have a hyperactive season. You guys remember 2005, right? The year that we went, past the alphabet, that we had to start over. All right, we had 28 named storms. That was actually a neutral year. So, I mean, neutral can still mean an active hurricane season. It doesn't have to be a big La Nina to have any active hurricane seasons. All right, so on the left, May 3rd. On the right, May 14th. As you can see, we have cooled down a little bit because the east and the south is finally getting some cooler plunges here, because all of a sudden April and May was just kind of cold. All right, at least the first half of May was cold for the east so far. Now tomorrow, in the east here, it's going to be over 85 degrees. But we'll take what we can get. Nice warm weather. All right, but Northern Caribbean, Central Caribbean, as well as parts of the Western Atlantic here, still above average, but not nearly as much as it was on May 3rd. But this can still change. All right, we still have over a couple of weeks until hurricane season officially starts. And here's where that tropical disturbance is right here. It's going to be riding up this way. So once it gets to about here, it'll probably lose some strength because going to run out of those warmer waters. But overall, I mean, the North Caribbean is still, and as well as the southern Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Campeche over here, however you say it. I just like to call it the Southwest Gulf of Mexico sometimes. The Western Gulf of Mexico there is still above average as well. Not necessarily the Eastern Gulf of Mexico, but again, these ocean temperature anomalies can change pretty quick. But when you look at the actual ocean temperatures, though, they pretty much stay the same. As a matter of fact, the area of 29 degrees has actually grown across the Caribbean. All right, and these will probably get at their warmest around late August and September. You'll probably see these oceans at their warmest here. But much of the central and southern Gulf of Mexico is above 80 degrees. And right where that tropical disturbance is going to track, probably some more 80s as well. All right, until it leaves the Bahamas, and that's a different story. All right, but that tropical disturbance, though, if it takes a western track closer to the Gulf Stream, maybe some warmer waters, takes a more eastern track, cooler waters. So we're going to have to see what that's disturbance. But anyway, when we're talking about hurricane season in general, which is what this video is about, all right, these 80-degree waters are going to continue to expand, even if the ocean water is a little bit cooler than normal. All right, the fact is that if we're going, like usually when we dive into a neutral or La Nina, that really doesn't impact the ocean temperature that much. It can, but what it impacts the most is the wind shear. And what the big deal with a neutral or La Nina is that the wind shear gets low, like very low. And we know that wind shear prevents hurricanes, or at least, weakens them greatly, at least. So the fact that we have little to no wind shear possibly through the season is what really neutral La Nina is about, and why we could have an active hurricane season. But either way, though, May 3rd, May 14th, we still have a right near the subtropics here, and still, I mean, it's still above average water temperatures, all right? And that little region, the MDR, that I started to notice to see some blue growing here. That has actually started to fade away and even replaced by some pockets of orange. So we're starting to warm back up in the MDR there. So like I said, these sea surface temperatures can go either way pretty quickly. All right, so the MDR region is starting to warm up again. So that could be a little positive into the hurricane season. Actual ocean temperatures out in the tropical Atlantic, I'm definitely starting to see that that 80-degree line advance farther to the east than it was before. All right, so before we kind of had it, if you draw up and down like this. So if we kind of count, because it's going to kind of move west to east like this. So if we kind of look at it here, it's kind of just past 50, right around 51. Or sorry, 49. It's getting lower as you go east. That's right. Stupid me, right? But 51 or 49 degrees west. When before, if you draw the line, it was actually more so 52. So you can tell that the yellow area is starting to move a little bit farther to the east, meaning those 80-degree waters are starting to move farther to the east, and therefore we're starting to warm up a little bit in the tropical Atlantic, at least by Africa. When we look at the Caribbean here, that's actually shrunk a little bit. We went from 0.4 above average to 0.27 above average, and again, this can still go either way. Actually, ironically, the MDR has stayed exactly the same. You take the MDR as a whole, all right, it stayed exactly the same. Okay, 0.108, but yes, it stayed exactly the same here, ironically. So MDR is the same, little bit warmer here when we're talking about the North Atlantic. It has been a little upward trend closer to the zero line since. All right, but not much of a difference here for the North Atlantic. But we have been getting a little bit warmer there too as well, closer to that average line. Another place that's got warmer, like I said just before, was the East Tropical Atlantic. Before we were on a nosedive, and now we've gone up since, and we've stayed near the zero line. We've been hovering there at 0.12 degrees above average. But here's the big thing right here. Nino 3-4, we went from almost 0.3 degrees above average to 0.11 degrees below average. The Nino 3-4 all of a sudden just started taking a huge swan dive. And this is something that's not going to recover back positive like all the other parts of the ocean, North Atlantic Ocean do, all right? Sometimes they go down and come back up. This one isn't going to it's not really going to come back up. Ever since the end of April, we've just been started to decline the Nino 3-4 region, and that's going to lead to potentially active hurricane season. And you know what's funny? When I just looked at it, I was looking at it because I thought it was weird. If you look at the Caribbean on May 14th, see how it says 0.275 degrees above average? If you go to the Nino 3-4, right, that also says 0.275 above average, but that was the May 3rd update, so that's pretty weird. The numbers were exactly on there. Tropical Intensity Index. Right now, it seems to be pretty unfavorable, actually, throughout much of the Atlantic here, and that could probably be because of wind shear. Just yesterday, I actually saw a little bit of a favorable area starting to develop right in here, and it kind of withered away. But still, the southern part of the Caribbean here is still above average, or at least more favorable for conditions. But I think that conditions will be favorable for a subtropical storm, at least here off the coast of the southeast. But again, this is going to change as we head into hurricane season. This is kind of what I want to show you here. All right, so this is the 26-degree isothermy. You might be like, whoa, okay, you're confusing me here. Well, all right, well, it's very simple to explain. So on the right is depth in meters, okay? Anywhere you see this orange and red area, so it's not just about the warm ocean surface. It's about how warm can the waters get when you get below the surface? Because if the waters continue to be warm when you're below the surface, that really helps the hurricane get together. And in some cases here, we're between 125 to 175 meters down. Okay, so this is basically saying in that region right here, that's saying that 125 to 175 meters down, the water is still 80 degrees plus. Just think about that for a second. Okay, we're talking at least what? At least 450, possibly close to 500 feet. We're talking about 350 to 500 feet below the ocean surface here. And all in this region, okay, 80 degrees, 300 to 500 feet below the surface. All right, so that's how warm these waters can get. And even in that yellow region, right? Even in all this yellow region you see here, that's covering much of the Caribbean and even parts of the southern Gulf of Mexico, that's 100 meters. That means the waters are still 80 degrees Fahrenheit plus 300 feet below the water. So that's pretty it's pretty extraordinary here. Why is this tropical disturbance getting room to form? Well, there's actually a quarter here of no dry air in the northern Caribbean right now, parts of the western Atlantic. There's no dry air really to contend with. There's even a hole in the dry air in parts of the tropical Atlantic as well. We're starting to see it break up a little bit close to Africa. So I will say though, that's another reason. That's another thing as well. When you get closer to La Nina, the dry air can actually be below average as well, which would really help those hurricanes. But there's your little tropical disturbance right now, sitting right there as your disturbance. It's going to be moving this way. That dry air is going to start clearing up here. And again, the dry air is starting to get a little bit lower, which is why another factor that we look into determining a hurricane season. All right, and let's take a look at the tropical cyclone heat potential. All right, when we looked before, it was just a little bit area of orange and a tiny dot of red just south of Cuba. Look how much it has grown. All this orange and even more red has grown across much of the northern Caribbean here. And that same area of red has turned into some pink now. All right, so we're talking about over 130 kJcm squared there. So, I mean, just trying to look at the number. Don't really kind of say, don't really want to say the unit. I kind of like saying the number better, just to show you how high it's actually getting. So if we can actually zoom in, there we go. All right. So again, very, very warm. And we got, when the heat content is this high on the totem pole, all right, that's kind of something to worry about. When it's over 100 like that, that means that not only are the ocean waters warm, but they're warm below the surface, and that there's enough energy getting fed into that tropical cyclone. All right, wind shear is a little bit of a problem right now. All right, like I said, here's our tropical disturbance moving up this way. That's where it's going to be sort of tracking, which is why I think it's going to have a better chance of becoming a subtropical cyclone. Again, we're going to be watching that. Hopefully, hopefully I'll be able to update you guys in the next day or two on it. All right, but wind shear right now is high, but that is still typical for this time of year. Don't get too hyped up. We still have 2 weeks before hurricane season officially starts. So, I mean, if we have these same kind of conditions like through July, then that's gonna be a problem that means we're probably having a less active season. But that's probably not going to be the case. Probably going to have a very active hurricane season, most likely, and potentially a hyperactive season. Matter of fact, we look at the wind shear here at the Caribbean. Look at the latest value. It's kind of gone down a little bit. Now you can see it goes really up and down. It's like a roller coaster. But the latest value here is below the average that we see for vertical shear here in the Caribbean. So the Caribbean's a little bit below average with the shear, and usually that's what happens most of the time. Look how much we've been below average here. All right, and we still are. We've been below average, and it does go up and down, but overall we are below average. Same thing with the tropical Atlantic. Latest value here, right there. It is below the black line, which usually gets lowest, obviously, late summer into the fall. Even the vertical shear, though, in the tropical Atlantic is a little bit below average. And we have been, for the most part, since March. Wind shear has been kind of low. So, all these factors are going to be something that we're going to have to watch. So I used to show you kind of the wind shear up for this, but I'm showing you the same kind of map, except this time I'm going to show you the wind shear anomaly. I thought it'd be, because the wind shear is always going to be high at this time of year, so if I showed you the anomaly, it's probably better. All right, so, and look at much of the tropical Atlantic right there. All right, below average wind shear. This is from the 16th to the 21st of May. And all this region, we're talking about anywhere from 6 to 20 knots of wind shear below average. All right, let's skip to from the 19th to the 24th. All right, we still have a little pocket right there of below average wind shear. And even that little darker blue region, potentially 25, 30 knots of shear below average, which obviously means more hurricanes in that blue region, potentially. All right, if there's less wind shear, but there is some more wind shear coming out of the west there, so that's something we're gonna have to watch. And if we go to the 22nd to the 27th, that blue area is starting to fade away, and we're starting to see a little bit more wind shear coming in. All right, but that's what usually happens when the models get farther out. All right, and here's your little pocket of average wind shear, and then the rest of it is just above average wind shear, but that can still change. All right, so something to watch here for the hurricane season. If we look at the steering patterns, again, take a look. Where do these storms go? All right, we have the high pressure with the CFS V2 here. That can steer the storms again this way, and that's something we're going to have to watch. All right, and hopefully my 7th hurricane outlook, I'll be providing you guys with another forecast so you guys can really see how much has really changed. But again, here's the high pressure there steering those tropical storms potentially. All right, obviously the tropical storms aren't actually there. I'm just giving you an example, but the high pressure could create that potential pattern. So something we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on. All right. And again, if we backtrack a little bit more, like I said, that tropical Atlantic area is starting to fade away. We have increased chances for La Nina. We went from 43 to 60% chance of La Nina. So definitely something we're going to have to keep our eyes on. All right, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe as well. I am The Weather Dude, signing off. Until next time. Thank you for watching.